So as Ben just mentioned there, I've probably spent about 10 years of head of energy at Mitchells & Butlers. And Mitchells & Butlers might not necessarily be a name that's familiar to you, but they're the largest operator of managed bars and restaurants here in the UK. But you'll very rarely actually see them trading under the name of Mitchells & Butlers. They trade under a multiple of different brand formats. So it might be Harvester, Toby Carvery, Browns, All Bar One, O'Neill's, Emberlins. Probably a lot of brand names that you're familiar with, but you don't realise that there's one large company behind all of this. 40,000 employees, 1,500 sites. So a big challenge there. And it was really through what I was doing at Mitchells & Butlers, I started to get involved with the Energy Managers Association. And the Energy Managers Association, going back 5 to 10 years ago, was very much in its infancy. We had a vision to make that grow, become the body and the voice of energy managers within the UK. And I must have done something right along the way, because they've asked me to become chairman, and I've been chairman for about 3 or 4 years now. And I must admit, I've really enjoyed that role. It's quite demanding, but very enjoyable, because not only do I get to see what's happening in some of the other sectors outside hospitality, which is where most of my experience is, but we get involved in a lot of government consultations and things like that. They now come to us. They see us as the voice of energy in this country when it comes to energy management issues. So that's a fantastic place to be in. I moved on from Mitchells & Butlers, staying within hospitality, and I now run a business which helps other hospitality companies, so bar, restaurant owners, hotels, stadiums, and anything that's involved in hospitality, looking at reducing their energy consumption. Some of the businesses that we work with along the bottom of there, so quite a broad spectrum of businesses. Why is energy so important, and why is behaviour change so important within that? Well, if we look at Mitchells & Butlers, we had an energy spend of roughly around £90 million, 90 million sterling, and we reduced that by over 20%. So over a period of 5 years, we took that from 90 million down to 70 million. How did we do that? Half of that saving was down to behaviour change. Half of it was looking at buildings, equipment, controls. 50% of that saving was by getting people to behave differently. So massive incentive. And I think we can replicate that in most businesses that we come to. Most of you will probably drive cars. You'll see miles per gallon, kilometres per litre, something that you're quite familiar with. Most of you can probably actually tell me, give or take a 1 or 2, what your car does at the moment. It's probably something that probably improved on over recent years. Yeah, quite a few nods of people there. In actual fact, this is sort of, one of the sort of greatest successes of behaviour change. Fuel consumption, the information that you've got, it's actually driven new behaviours. I even know of people that sort of compete when they've got light company car fleets. What are you getting? What are you getting? I've got one better than you. Things like that. And actually driving, trying to drive differently in order to make that change. But it's a real success, and it's a real success for various reasons, and we'll come back to that just at the end. But what I'm going to try and do, part of what I do with the EMA, I deliver courses on behaviour change, and they can range from anything from 1 day to 3 or 4 days. I'm going to try and condense a little bit of that into about the next 7 minutes. So what we're going to look at, what are some of the essentials of successful behaviour change? What do you need to think about it prior to commencement, before you actually really sort of get going? And then what are some of the essentials for delivery? Behaviour change, what's it all about? It's about people. It's not about controls, it's not about fancy dashboards and things. It's all about understanding these people. And if you don't understand people and the way they behave, then how can you really put together a successful behaviour change programme? When I first started this at Mitchells & Butlers, I've got to be honest, I was a bit of a novice when it comes to behaviour change. I got a few ideas like most other people, but how was I going to try and get 40,000 people to do things differently? Things they've been doing, all of their working life and things that their predecessors did. And I'll share one of my first observations with you was I thought we've got a real mixture of people working in this business. We've got a lot of young people who may be at university, maybe they've just come out of school, there may be gap years, but they're looking for their first proper job and they're working in a bar or a restaurant. These are people who have grown up in an era of the world being more environmentally friendly, environmentally conscious, more energy efficient. So I thought some of these people might be really good to get on board as some of our champions. They'd get this. They'd get energy management. They'd get the environmental angle of this. Then there's other people, shall I say a bit more of my era? They've been doing what they've been doing for the last 20, 30 years, and don't come and tell me to change. This is the way I do it. This is the way I'll carry on doing it. You can get lost. So I thought, I might just give those a wide berth. Do you know what? I got it totally wrong. Absolutely 100% wrong. The older people, they'd just seen their energy bills go up by 10% at home. They said, yep, I know this is a big problem. What can we do to help? If we can save 10% on the business's energy bill, maybe just the manager might give us a little bit more for some extra staffing and things like that. The kids, the ones that I thought were going to be really interested, they didn't care. How much is a pint of beer? That was the most important thing for them. Energy, that's something that had always been given to them for free. Mum and Dad pays the energy bill. They had no conception at all of what the cost of energy or anything like that was. I got it totally wrong. But that was what started to then fuel my fascination for all of this. Why did I get it so wrong? What were those assumptions that I made? And I started to look into the psychology of why people do what they do, why we have all these routines and things like that. That was about 10 years ago. I studied this and got to the point where we managed to change the behaviour of 40,000 people enough to save 10 million odd pounds. And then later on in the business, when we tried to have other behaviour change campaigns, which were non-energy related, they asked me to be involved with them because we'd had a successful campaign. So, coming back to all these people, what have most of these people got in common? What have they probably got in common with most of you? Routines. I can imagine probably if you're at home, you probably get up in the morning and you probably do the same things in the same order each morning. You might go and put the kettle on, you might go to the bathroom, you take your shower, you come out, you make your cup of coffee, you have your cereals. You do that. Why do you do that? Because that's what you've always done. It might have been what your parents used to do. It's what someone else has done. But it's a routine. And we see those routines then translate into the workplace. So people come in, they turn the lights on, they put the air conditioning to whatever it is. They do that because they've always done it. Why have they always done it? Because that's what their predecessor did. They've probably never really been challenged on it. And it's these routines that we then need to try and break down and understand, what can we do? What's going to trigger someone to do something differently? And the frustrating thing in all of this, this is a great saying, the habits that took years to build don't take a day to change. This frustrates me. I don't know, like a lot of you lot. When I have a good idea, when I see something I want to change, I want to do it instantly. I want it bang, I want to nail it, I want to get on to the next thing. Behaviour change doesn't quite work like that. You're not going to change people in an instant. It's a slow burn. You need things to support it, but it really does get very frustrating. So you've got Eniscope, you can see all the opportunity, you can see where people are maybe turning some of these things on and off early. So why don't we just tell them, tomorrow you're going to do something different. You're going to do this a different way. You're going to, instead of coming down and turning that on, you're going to do something different. But what does that actually imply by doing that? What it implies is, well, just stop doing that. You're doing this all wrong. Stop. Get rid of these bad habits. You're really having a stab at these people, aren't you? You're saying, you know what, you're all useless, you're all doing it wrong. No one likes that. I wouldn't like that, and I'm sure most of you guys wouldn't. So, in actual fact, that's not the way to go about it. What you've got to try and do is find the little levers, the little triggers. What's in it for me? Troy earlier today was talking about, ask a man. The end bit of that, the need.
That's actually relating to actually trying to sell into businesses. But we're trying to actually sell into some of these people to get them to change their habits. What's the need? What's in it for them? Why should they do it? So the first thing I find with any behaviour campaign is you need to look at the people and talk to the people that you're trying to change the behaviours of. You've got different types of people in the restaurants. We've got waiting staff. We've got the chef. Wouldn't really want to argue with him, would you? You've also got people that like to receive and process information in different ways. You've got the guy there at the computer. He'll probably get information online or something, or, you know, through guidance. He's never going to sit down at a computer. He's a hands-on, practical guy. So, but what you've got to look at is try and go beyond what we're sort of seeing from an energy point of view. What's in it for them? What's going to trigger that behaviour change? Some of the presentations we saw just before lunch, it isn't always the energy saving that leads the conversation. And that's often true in behaviour change as well. So, for example, in the restaurants, the kitchen probably consumes 2/3 of energy. So that's an area I want to focus on. But what can we try and do? What are the big issues for them? We found that when we... accidentally pressed that. When we sat down with these guys, one of the big things in the kitchen, it's really hot. Not surprisingly, you've got a lot of equipment in there emitting heat. Well, what if we can do something to help you reduce that heat? Well, what could we do? So you start to talk, you develop the discussion. Well, in actual fact, we've often got quite a lot of equipment on when it doesn't need to be on. That's giving out heat. Well, we'll help you do that then. We'll help you find a way of actually reducing all of that equipment and reducing that heat. And then you're thinking in the back of the mind, oh, by the way, I've got my energy saving then. You don't even need to mention the energy word virtually. You're starting to find that need, what's in it for them. A great example of this was, this wasn't one I was actually involved in. This is one of the hospital trusts in the UK, Bart's Health. And they did exactly what I've just described. They talked to the staff. What's the most important thing for you? Well, it's patient care. It's making sure that the patients are well looked after, they're comfortable and things like that. So what could we do to help that? Well, we make sure, you know, we shut the doors when it gets a bit noisy so it's quiet for them. We'll turn the lights down and things like this. And that then fed into what they called Project TLC. So it was turn off equipment, lights down and closing doors. And then they actually proactively did that. And what they were able to get as well was feedback on how they're doing. Because they had sub-metering, they had information to come back to them, they knew what was happening, they knew how they were performing, and it became one of the greatest sort of behaviour change programmes that the sort of the NHS in the UK had seen. So where do we go from there? We've got all the data, we know all of this, we can analyse it to all of our heart's content, but where do we actually start and what are the pitfalls? So I'm probably just going to pull out 3 little things. Often when we go and see new clients, they say, you know, what are you going to do? How are you going to save us some money? Well, we'll play around with all the controls and all the equipment and things like that. We've got technology we can implement, and then we'll do some behaviour change. Oh, we've tried behaviour change, it doesn't work. How many times have people heard something like that? It doesn't work. And then you ask them what they did. Oh, we put some stickers up, a couple of posters and things like that. That's not behaviour change. It's actually getting to the root of the people and understanding, you know, how they're going to take this information. So, before I go into the 3 little things, let's just recap. People are not machines. They're not things that we can control. They don't have flashy lights that tell you what mood they're in or what the mode they're in or how they're feeling. You can't flick a switch to do things like that. This is all the easy stuff. We use Eniscope day in, day out to find answers to things like this. But then how do we actually get back to these people? So what are some of the simple things that I see people doing wrong when it comes to behaviour change? The first thing is we've analysed all the data, we've gone through Eniscope end to end, and we have got a raft of great ideas, all of these great things that they can do. A list as long as that. If I came to you first thing on a Monday morning and gave you a list like that, what would your initial reaction be? Whoa, slow down. And remember, the people that we're trying to change the behaviour of, they've got a day job to do. This is just part of what we're trying to change some of their routines. So they've got 1,000,001 other things to do. So again, this comes back to a little bit of frustration because you want to go quickly. If someone came along to you and gave you a list that long, which one are you going to tackle first? you're probably going to go for the smaller one first, aren't you? So whilst you might be wildly enthusiastic and have all these great ideas and you've got all of this great information from the data, the things you want to change, we've got to try and keep it in bite-sized chunks. I'd actually suggest that we go one step further than that. Not your top 10. One thing. Start off with one thing. One thing that they can do to change their behaviour, and they're going to be able to see a result from it, because this is where your lifetime information comes in. You haven't got to wait for half-hourly data that you can't see or anything like that. If they do one thing and they can see fairly quickly what the impact of that one thing is, wouldn't it be great if they came back to you and said, what can we do next? That one worked really well. What's the next one? Even if it's not quite that interactive, you then feed one thing in at a time. So they can do one thing, they can see the result, and then you move on to the next one. Then you start to build some of that momentum. Forget this. I'd rather, if I had 52 great ideas, I'd rather do one a week for a year and get people to buy into it than try and do 52 things at once. Because trying to do 52 things at once just won't succeed. It's frustrating, but that's how you get to the end of it. If I asked you to pick one of those, you probably would, but you'd probably take a few minutes over it. You'd be looking at that, or small bottle, big bottle, red, yellow, green, whatever. Pick one of those. Probably quite quickly. Oh, very quick decision there. I see this often in what people are trying to do when they're asking people to change their behaviours. We give people too much option, too many things, too many possibilities. It might be that we're trying to change someone's behaviour in the kitchen. There's a whole host of things we can do in the kitchen, and we can say, oh, you can do all this, that and the other. Again, focus. Take away some of that choice and make it very, very specific in actual fact in what you want to try and people to do. That's a great example. If you actually do something like that when you've got a smaller audience in some of the courses that we run, I say pick one of those, and it'll take 30 seconds probably for people to pick the first one. That one is a couple of seconds. People sometimes will have lost interest on the first one. Oh, you know what, I can't be bothered. And again, that's natural behaviour, and it comes through into this. The third one, only turn the lights on that you need. So you see a problem with that? Okay, it's a fairly sort of clear instruction. Forgetting the little bit of tape, that's over the one. But what we need to do, and that is so often the type of challenge that I see put out to staff. Only do that, only use the lights you need. Well, what lights do I need? Whereas in actual fact, the more specific we can be, the easier it is for someone to do it. So, right, if I'm the cleaner and I come in, and I just want the ones that are labelled up with a green spot. The big thing with this is we actually need to make it easier to do the right thing than to do the wrong thing. If we can make it that easy, then it's actually going to work, in a much, much better way. Start with something so easy you can't say no to it. Again, coming back for that, we're all naturally impatient, but starting with something which is really, really easy, and then we can see the benefit of it, and then we can move on to something else. So I'll come back to our miles per gallon now, litres per kilometre. Why is that so good? Why is that so effective? It's simple and it's clear. It's real time. And you can actually see the benefit that you're getting out of your action. That's why that's worked so well. And that's one of the things that you need to then aim for with behaviour change. And the great thing with Eniscope and the like is that you can actually do that. Eniscope's fantastic for being able to give us that real-time feedback. When you're getting down to, sort of minute or, granulation of data, you can actually do something. You can see the results of it there and then. People can see it. People haven't got to wait periods and periods of time in order to be able to do something. So you can actually use it to be able to try and deliver and replicate this type of thing. Very quick summary. Before you start, involve the people that you want to change the behaviour of. Don't just decide on their behalf what they're going to do. Why do they want to do it? What's the need? What's in it for them? So what's that little trigger? What are you going to try and pull on? So how do you make life better for them? The chef's in the kitchen. We're actually going to have less heat by turning things down. That's what's in it for them. The solution, real-time data. Coming back to your car, miles per gallon. If you haven't got real-time data, imagine if you had to wait until you got home and then the next day log on to see what miles per gallon you got the previous day. You'd never do it, would you? Real-time data is critically important. Don't bombard people. You know, if you've got stuff coming at you all the time, you're just going to go, whoa, stop, I'll go and do something else. It won't work. You've got to take it simple steps at a time. Limit the choice, make it really easy, make it really clear for them, and then making it easier for people to do the right thing rather than the wrong thing. So make it very, very clear what you're asking them to do, rather than it being sort of ambiguous in any way, shape or form. That is a very, very quick run through behaviour change. Hope that's of use.